In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, America. Good evening to every soul who has ever sat beside a sick loved one and wished they had known more. Good evening to every family that navigated a health system not designed for them and found their way through anyway. Good evening to every community worker, every home health aide, every neighborhood healer who showed up without fanfare and gave everything they had. You are the reason we are here tonight. You are the reason America in Black and White exists, because somebody has to say your name. Somebody has to stand in the light and tell the truth about who built this nation, who healed this nation, and who is still saving it today, one life at a time. This is America in Black and White, the show where we do not sanitize history, we celebrate it, where we do not whisper about Black excellence, we proclaim it. Every episode of this program is a tribute to the men and women who came before us, whose shoulders we stand on, whose sacrifices became the soil from which our futures grew. Tonight, we carry three names with us, names that deserve to be spoken aloud, name that deserves to echo. Naomi McCowan, Emma Corbett, Maddie Blake, three women, three rivers of love, discipline, and purpose that flowed together and shaped a man who would dedicate his life to the health and wholeness of his community. We will honor them tonight. We will call their names, and we will let the world know that their legacy did not end with them. It walks among us. Our guest tonight is a man who saw a gap in the world and decided not to wait for someone else to fill it. He is a man who understands that healthcare is not merely about medicine, it is about dignity. It is about making sure the people in zip codes that have been overlooked, underfunded, and underestimated have access to the knowledge, the training, and the empowerment that can save their lives. He built something. He built it from vision, from conviction, from love, and he built it for you. His work is not confined to boardrooms or academic journals. It lives on the streets, in the community centers, in the hearts of people who walked into his organization uncertain and walked out equipped. Tonight, we hear his story. Tonight, we sit with his purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, America, it is my profound honor and my genuine joy to welcome to America in Black and White, Season 4, Episode 119, a physician of the people, an educator, a builder, a champion of community health, and a living testament to everything those three extraordinary women poured into him. Please welcome Dr. Feris W. Corbett.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. And how are you today?
I am excellent. Thanks for being here. And I'm glad that you're here to shed some light on this healthcare situation. Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we delve into the show?
Just like to say hello to everybody, and we appreciate you all taking the time to join us here on this American in Black and White with Dr. King, and we appreciate you, Dr. King, for this opportunity.
Well, I want to thank each and every individual before we get going. I want to thank each and every individual that's here tonight. And I let you know that I appreciate you for supporting us. Those who support us every night, I appreciate you as well. And I hope you guys sit back, relax, and enjoy this wonderful show here. Dr. Corbett, I like to start, as I do with every show. That is, I like to give the audience the opportunity to learn a whole lot more about you before we delve into the really good things that you're doing. This is what I call your origins and upbringing. So, Dr. Corbett, take us all the way back to the beginning. Where did you grow up, and what was the texture of that community? What did it feel, smell, and sound like to be young Feris Corbett coming of age in that place?
Thank you for that question, Mr. King. I was born in a city called South Georgia. During that time, it was a fairly small little town, but it has grown into a metropolitan area as of this day. Coming up in the community that I lived in, everybody knew everybody. If you were doing something wrong and a neighbor saw you, they would say something to you, and then they'd say something to your parents, and it was just a well-knit community, and everybody looked out for everybody. And like I say, everybody knew everybody, and just make sure everybody was safe.
Wow. When you think about the neighborhood or environment you were raised in, what were the early signals, the experiences, or observations that began pointing you toward health, healing, and service to others?
One of my desire, I always wanted to be a physician. I actually, in fact, wanted to be a cardiologist. That was my dream, to be a cardiologist. So that's been one of my dreams. So that kind of laid the foundation of, wanting to be in healthcare because of the desire that I had to be a cardiologist. So that kind of led me to my pathway of healthcare and into the medical field.
Okay. What was the role of faith, family, and community in your household growing up? How did those three forces combine to shape the man you would become?
As far as with the faith, every Sunday morning we had to get up and go to Sunday school, get up and go to church. There was no getting around it. There was no getting out of it. That was the rule of the house, and we complied to that. We had no choice but to follow. Family, I was the youngest of my siblings. And so by the time I came along, all of my brothers and sisters practically had all moved away from home. So it was just myself and a couple more of my siblings that were in the home. And so with that, me being the youngest, I kind of looked up to my elder brothers and sisters and everything, but they were all grown, and so they were rarely there as well. So basically, I was there, growing up with my mom and my father for a little while because they are, through time they separated, but I was still there with my mom. And then when she took sick, I became her caregiver and everything.
Wow. So were there moments in your childhood where you encountered the healthcare system, either your own experience or a family member's, that left a mark on you? What did those moments teach you about what was possible and what was missing?
The moment I would say would be, as I said, when I was, helping take care of my mother. So that kind of opened my eyes to some things, having been in the hospital at the bedside with her and taking care of her. So it made me want to gain a little bit more knowledge about healthcare and the healthcare system and how they function and everything.
Wow. So, who was the first person outside of your immediate family to look at you and say, with absolute conviction, you're going to be something great? What did that affirmation mean to you as a young person still figuring out his path?
The first person I would say that said something like that was when I took a patient technician course, and the actual instructor of that course, it was a letter that she actually wrote to me upon graduating from that patient technician course. And I still have that letter to this day. And one of the lines that stood out to me the most was where she said in that letter, is once in a lifetime that a student inspires the teacher, and you're one of those person that does that. And that when she said, and encouraged me to keep the faith and let me know that I was going to go somewhere in life.
So, as you think about where you are today compared to then, what are some of the lifelong lessons that you learned that's made you a much stronger individual as you go further into your career field?
Maintaining integrity, honesty, and professionalism at all times. Even if you have family, patients that may be outraged, cursing and swearing at you, to maintain that professionalism, that integrity, and being honest.
So, is that like one of the things that, as you look back and you think about, your spirituality and how you grew up going to church? I mean, are those some of the things that help you along as far as your moral compass and how you deal with people?
Yes, it does. Plays a huge role. And of course, my faith, it plays a huge role in that too. Because
So looking back at the child you were, what qualities or instincts did young Ferris possess that you now recognize as the seeds of everything you have built?
wow. I would have to say with growing up and while we was in middle school and everything, people will always come to me asking me questions, confiding in me. Um, if they had issues or they had concerns, they would come and, talk to me. And to the best of my ability and my knowledge, I would give them what little advice that I could give to them. And that was a constant thing. People always coming up to me, looking to me for uh, advice and guidance and everything. Even on riding on the school bus, we'd be riding on the school bus, and I'd be sitting at the back of the school bus, and everybody's turning around, talking to me, asking me questions and things of that nature. I mean, not just things about the Bible, but things about life in general.
So let's transition over to the women who shaped you. That is Naomi McCowan, Emma Corbett, and Maddie Blake. We want to honor three women tonight who are foundational to your story. Can you introduce each of them to our audience? Who are these women, and what was the nature of your relationship with each of them?
Okay, we'll begin with Emma Corbett. Emma Corbett was my grandmother. We stayed like right across the railroad track from my grandmother, and so every day I was at my grandmother's house. And Tuesday nights she would have in-house Bible study, and I would be the first person to show up for the Bible study. And one thing she would always say to me, she would always call me her little professor. Uh,
Um, go
so
ahead.
Apostle McCowan, which was my spiritual mother, when I graduated from patient technician, that patient technician course, she would encourage me and then tell me, no, don't stop there. You know, she encouraged me to go on to get my LPN license. She told me, don't stop there. You can do better. Keep going. And it led to the point, and she even said to me one time, she said, you know, you will be that doctor, even if it's not a medical doctor. And those things were instilled in me from her. And one of the things that she constantly said was, education and salvation is a perfect combination. And that stuck with me. And as far as Miss Maddie, she was the first director of nursing that actually gave me a nursing position once I took my board of nursing and passed and got my license. She was the first person that gave me an opportunity to develop my nursing and my nursing skill and my nursing career. And one of the things that she would always tell me and you would say to me was, you know, don't let everybody know or tell everybody everything that you know. And it wasn't a matter of keeping secrecy, but you know, it was a matter of protecting what you've earned, your knowledge and your skill, and be careful in how you share it. And so she was a great mentor to me in my beginning part of my nursing career.
So, if Naomi McCowan, Emma Corbett, and Maddie Blake could see He Cares Training and Education Center LLC today, what do you think they would say? And what would you want to say back to them?
I would think they would say they would be very proud of where we are, what we've achieved. And the thing that I would say back to them is thank you for not giving up on me when I wanted to give up on my own self.
Wow. There's something powerful about a man who credits women, black women especially, black women as architects of your greatness. What messages, what messages does that send to the young people watching tonight, both about honoring those who came before us and about the irreplaceable role of black women in our communities?
It's important and is foundational to stand upon those ones that have gone before us and paved that way and that have been an instrumental and a role model and an influencer in your progressing toward becoming an adult, towards coming into your career and into your development. Um, as you notice, you know, nowadays a lot of I would say single parents, if you allow me to say that, a lot of the single parents, women, um, some of them don't have the affordability to take that full time with their child or what have you, or a person, because of the way society is now. They're having to work full time and try to raise a household. And if you have that female or that lady or that woman that's in your life that's influencing you in that positive direction of growth, then it is imperative that we um, appreciate that. Uh,
Mhm.
it it helps pave the way to your future and all.
So, you know, as you just made that interesting observation about the single women, can you tell us how do their struggles compare to the single mothers of past? Because it seemed like the ones of past have done well. What's missing and what is causing, you know, this to be such a paradigm in the shift that a paradigm shift that's just off?
Past single women, they made sure that that child did their homework, did their chores. It wasn't for me coming up. No television till you finish your homework. No television till you finish your chores. Nowadays, kids have all these games that they could play. They don't, that you got to get your homework done. You got to get your schoolwork done before you can enjoy those activities. So to me, that's the difference between single mothers in the past and single mothers today. And
So go ahead.
And even the single mothers in the past, even if they had a job, and they gave assignments to those kids, when you get home from school, I need you to have this, and that done. So when they get home from work, all they had to do is go in and start supper and what have you. Nowadays, kids not fending for themselves.
Yeah, but so I mean, because I understand that, especially in our communities, that situation is one that can go on and on and on and on. But when we think about it, I mean, how is it that we can make shift, for those parents that are rewarding bad behavior, and in rewarding that bad behavior, it's like the kids are kind of like falling by the wayside, right? Because neglect is more than just one way or more than just one thing. Sure. What are some of the things that you think some of these single mothers today can take, as a lesson from those women of the past? Because those women of the past were strong and strict disciplinarians.
Yes. And I think part of too is the culture of society today, because if a parent tried to discipline their child in today's society, the possibility of them going to jail for disciplining their child or being, themselves disciplined from having to discipline their child, that to me is something that we can look at and try to find a root cause, why. And a lot of times, Mr. King, a lot of the kids nowadays, their behavior is not so much as them having issue. It's the fact that if we can determine, why is this kid acting like this, and find that underlying cause, it's not so much as, what's wrong with them. It's more of a question of what happened to them. So there has to be something that causing this behavior.
Right. Well, I really do think that that's an actual interesting synopsis where I think it deserves to be explored, because I think our parents, whether they're single or if it's a two-couple household, I think we've got to go back and we've got to do some work on the parenting, because there's still a disconnect somewhere between that parent and that child, education and everything else that goes with that child.
Right.
Let's transition over to your educational journey and your academic formation. Walk us through your educational journey from your earliest school years to your highest academic achievements, and tell us what was school like for you, and at what point did education transform from something you were required to do into something you were driven to pursue?
Oh, thank you, Mr. King, for that one. Well, beginning, I didn't really like school. I hated school. I hated it. But you said it was required. And that's it, I had those parents, you're going. So when I thought that I became old enough that I could make my own decision, I dropped out of school. I dropped out of high school. My junior year, I dropped out of high school. And going back to my spiritual mother, Apostle McCowan. Um, she was such an inspiration. As I said, that statement of hers, salvation, education, and salvation is the perfect combination. It ringed in my ear. And so what I did was, and her encouraging me to, go on back, don't stop there. So what I did was I purchased a GED book, and I studied that GED book for maybe about a month and a half. And I made the statement to God, and I said, Lord, you say faith without work is dead. So my work is I've studied this book, and now my faith says when I go take this exam, I'm going to pass it. And so I went and I got my GED. And then it was after I got my GED that I decided to go into nursing, just to see, because as I said, I wanted to be a cardiologist. And so I wanted to see, was the medical field something that I really wanted to do? So that's why I went into the nursing aspect of it. And once I got into, nursing, and I passed my NCLEX for my LPN license, I found that the medical field was something that I really, really, really enjoyed. And so I began to pursue my RN degree. I got almost to the point where I was actually ready to start doing my clinicals for my RN degree. That's when I decided and said to myself, I had been nursing for a while, and I said, I've been taking care of patients at the bedside after they have gotten sick. So then I decided, what if I can get on the preventative aspect of things? And that's what kind of shifted me into the public health aspect of it. And so that's why I went on and I pursued, and I got my master's in public health. And then, I figured, I could be even a greater influence if I go ahead on and get my doctorate in public health. And so that's when I started to pursue my doctorate in public health. And again, my mind flashed back to what my spiritual mom said, that I will become a doctor, even if it's not a medical doctor. And so now I'm on the spectrum where now I'm trying to provide education on preventative measure, trying to keep our community from getting to the point that they wind up in the hospital.
Well, let's talk about this, because I remember when we chatted, before the show, and you was telling me about public health. What made you decide on public health? Because that is such an interesting field of study that has been so female dominated and oriented for God knows how long. What I've discovered in some researches as of lately here in these last 10 to 15, 20 years is that now there are an enormous amount of men that are getting degrees. They're in the public health aspect of career journeys. And what I'm finding more so is that there are more Black men that are in that field. So can you tell us what was so enticing about public health, other than, this personal journey of yours, that made you want to make this a career?
For me, it was because public health doesn't just look at an individual, it looks at an entire community. And so for me, well, if I can impact an entire community, I can make a greater impact and a greater difference in the health and well-being of not just an individual, but an entire community. And when you have healthier communities, you have a lesser chance of sicker individuals because you have a healthier community. And that's in the aspect of physical and mental well-being.
When I think about, and just my understanding and knowing that Your field actually covers communities. I look at that and I think more so than just from the administrative perspective, but I'm thinking about the people part of that, because it seems like you guys get to deal more with people and you go out and you're more so personable with people when you connect. Can you tell us what about that part of your career that is so intact with the things that you do now that made this so natural for you?
When people or individuals see an individual like themselves that are bringing them, that education, that information, it kind of helps break that stigma associated with the non-trust within the
Yo.
medical aspect or medical arena. And to me, that kind of help breaks down those walls that individuals in communities have set up. Uh, it becomes more personable now. Now they have somebody that can actually relate to why they think the way they think or why they feel the way that they feel when it comes to certain things in the arena of healthcare.
So, were there teachers, professors, or mentors along your academic path who fundamentally changed the trajectory of your life? Tell us about one of them, what they saw in you, and what they said or did that shifted everything.
The one person that I could think of is when I was in my master of public health degree. I had this one instructor. I felt that she was extremely hard on me. She, she would take my papers that I would write, and she would dissect them like I was back in anatomy and physiology, and she would dissect it so hard. And when it was time to graduate, I actually told her, and I'll say her name. Her name was Miss Jones. I actually told her, I say, I actually thought you didn't like me because you were so hard on me. And so at graduation, she was at the graduation and she said to me, the reason why is because I knew you had it in you. I saw it in you, and I just needed to pull it out of you. So it made me appreciate her now. At the time, I wasn't appreciating you. I done spent all this hours, 3 and 4 hours at night writing this paper. You just shuck. So, but now I look back and I appreciate that. And I really do, because I see now, I appreciate that push.
Mhm.
If she had not pushed me, I probably would not have pursued it. I probably would have gave up, even though I was mad. But
Mhm.
I appreciate, and I did tell her I appreciate her for,
Mhm. So, higher education for Black men in America is never just an academic journey, it is also a navigational one. What barriers, biases, or challenges did you face in your academic formation, and how did you refuse to let those forces define your outcome?
barriers. One of the major ones that I can think of at the top of my head was the financial barriers. Uh, but I did the best I could. I would save whenever I did not get my financial aid. I would save so that I could continue on with my education. And the other thing was I was determined. I've come this far, and overcame challenges. I overcame obstacles, overcame being a dropout, And so that kept me motivating. And also, I had a dear friend. We actually she started in the doctoral program for DNP at the same time I was going for my uh, Doctor of Public Health. And at night, we would be both at night, up late at night, encouraging each other, sharing, look at this paper for me, look at that paper for me. And so that we were kind of motivation for each other. And she is my co-founder of He Cares. So,
So is it safe to call her your accountability partner?
I would say yes. And I would say we're both accountability partners for each other.
Yeah.
There were times she called me and was pulling her hair out.
So can you tell us, when did public health emerge as your calling? Was there a specific course, a clinical experience, a paper you read, a conversation you had? What was the moment you knew this was the field where you were meant to make your mark?
When I was researching about the public health field and researching about what school I wanted to go to for the public health. But the main thing is when I was starting to research about the public health field, what all it entails, what all it involved. And as I said earlier, that's when I made that decision, now instead of taking care of a person after they've gotten sick and in the hospital, I probably can make a difference in providing education and teaching about prevention. And that's when I started along the public health journey, making that choice from caring for an individual to caring for communities. And that's when I got on it. But it came from me researching about public health and what it entails and what's involved in public health. That's how I got on the public health journey, doing the research about it.
So, how did your academic training intersect with your lived experience as a Black man in America? How did you reconcile or integrate what the textbook said and what you had seen in your own community?
Again, I would have to say some of the social determinants that we discussed in my public health course, and the stigma associated and the around the fear of going to a doctor, not trusting doctors, not trusting hospitals. Those are some of the things that was in the community, and those are some of the things that I saw in my academic studies about those social determinants and how that individuals had this fear or this stigma or this mistrust that's associated with the medical field and the healthcare system as a whole, and the fact that the healthcare system was not beneficial to people in my community, so to speak. But as we was doing our academic studies on public health, I began to see, and that began to, okay, I can make a difference. I can help minimize some of this distrust in the healthcare system. By someone seeing a person of my myself, someone like me, like someone like them, the people in our community. And so I could help kind of minimize that distrust and be more of an encourager. Go get your prostate exam done, especially African American men, prostate exam. Oh no. And so, in my study, realizing that, early detection could help, prevent you from getting to that stage 4 of prostate cancer, by having those screening. And so as I was doing my academic, learning this thing and learning how to communicate that to, people of our communities and let them know, hey, you know, this is a preventative disease. Or if caught early, detected early, again, and even with women's and their breast exam, while you're in the shower, go ahead and do your breast exam. And a lot of people don't understand that men also can get breast cancer.
Yes.
So that's
go ahead.
So that's why, with my academic and public health, I feel like I can, reach out better to the community.
Let's talk about this key word I've heard you mention more than one time, stigma. Tell us about how the stigma works when it comes to our community and, having to go to a doctor and deal with somebody that don't look like you. Let's say you come from a gender perspective and you got men, a lot of black men hate going to the doctor because they just don't want to go or they just have a distrust period. And with our women that go all the time, but it seems like the medical field or the medical profession has got this thing where it's against the black woman and her health. Tell us about that. How does the stigma work that really we need to work on in order to make this a whole lot better in our community?
A lot of it is generational thing that's handed down. It's more of a learned thing, if because you've heard parents, grandparents say certain things about, I went to the doctor and they just put me on all this medicine. They didn't really pay attention to what I was saying. They didn't really hear me. So that trickled down to today's generation. That it's more or less like, then you take the example of the Tuskegee Airmen, the experiments that done, that was part of that stigma. They just experimenting on you, So when you go to that doctor, all they want to do is experiment. That stigma is ringing in their mind because they're thinking about what happened then, and now they're saying they're doing the same thing nowadays. So that's part of that stigma, They experimenting on you. They just fill you up with this medicine. This medicine is killing you, and but if we can get to the point that we can provide that preventative part and keep that as the forefront, I think it would kind of help minimize some of that stigma. So
I want to ask you one more question on that before we move on, because that's really, really interesting. There's another report that I read like a couple of weeks ago, and it actually stated that from yesteryear, somewhere around the 40s or the 50s, coming up to today, that Black physicians were so discriminated against that they were discouraged and kicked out of the medical profession, period.
They were.
So as you look at that now and you think about today, in our main areas where we look for real serious need for serious conditions, we know we could talk about cardiovascular, we can talk about cancer, we can talk about from the physical therapy perspective. It's hard to find a Black physician. So that adds to the stigma. So what can we do to work around that to try to have a little bit better trust?
A lot of time, they don't think that they can actually achieve that goal of becoming that cardiovascular surgeon or that nephrologist. They don't feel like they can achieve that goal of becoming that specific specialist. You know, they can get to the point, okay, I can be a physician assistant, I can be a nurse practitioner, I can even be just a general practitioner, MD. But those specialty areas that, as you said, the cardiovascular, a cardiovascular surgeon, they don't feel like they would be accepted, if that makes sense. So they don't feel like they can achieve or attain that. Because as you said something earlier, it's because Black physicians and surgeons back then were rejected. You know, they were not even allowed to practice, even if they were a licensed physician or MD. In a lot of the hospitals back then and everything, they would not let them even practice there. So I forget which one it was, but I know it was called the if I'm not mistaken, the Philadelphia Medical Center. It was actually founded by a Black physician so that they could train Black physicians. So I think beginning in high school and college, there needs to be more encouragement to pursue those type of professions, and for curriculum that, you know, leads or lean into that encouragement to pursue those types of careers as a specialist and things like that, for the African Americans, college and in high school. Give them a motivation or incentive.
So, what advice would you give to a first generational Black student sitting in a college classroom right now, feeling like the only one in the room, perhaps the only one who has ever sat in at the family's chair at a university? What do you want them to know?
To maintain their focus, keep in mind and keep forefront their reasoning for being there, and to allow the quote unquote noise around them distract them and get them off focus, but to maintain their focus and pursue their goal with everything that they have, and don't be distracted and don't get off course or off focus.
Let's transition over to your work entering public health and your early career. After your education was complete, what were your first steps into the professional world of public health, and where did you start, and what did that entry point teach you about the field you had chosen?
I guess with our organization, He Cares, we had been, you know, discussing that and doing things on the side with that long before we even actually completely formed the organization. It was a planning phase, something that we were just, you know, writing little notes and things down. Then after we attained our public health degrees and everything, it was at that point that we decided, hey, let's go ahead and pursue this all the way. Let's go ahead and you know, make it legal. Let's go ahead and start building it, start promoting it, start discussing it. And so that's what we were at. Even when we were still working as a nurse, we were yet building the aspect of the public health, so that when we fully transition in, we'll have everything, the foundation, everything already laid. It was not something that we had to start from the ground up, and we just go ahead and build on what we had already laid.
So every career has a defining early moment, a day, a patient, a policy meeting, a community interaction that crystallizes why you chose this work. What was that moment for you, and how did it permanently redirect or deepen your commitment?
I would have to say when we did a workshop. It was talking about faith and mental health. We did it at we did a workshop at this church, and I believe it was at that point that it was sealed because of the turnout and because of the comments that were made after we did the workshop and the inquiry that people were asking and inquiring about after the workshop was completed, and the words of encouragement from the end of people that had attended the workshop. Um, and one of the things that really struck out to me is when some of the attendees says, this is needed, it's needed on a continual basis, and you need to keep this going. So that was kind of at that point, I was like, okay, I'm, I'm in the right vein.
Okay, that's what's up. So it was then. I guess that means then you had your feet wet, so you was already set in, and you just ready to dig in and go deeper and deeper and deeper and make this thing work.
Right. Yes. And then shortly after that, we actually received an invitation to do a be a part of a I guess you would call it a workshop again at Morris College in Sumter, South Carolina. Now that was the I guess the icing on the cake, um, because it opened up some other doors to do more seminars, more workshops, and everything. And so, yeah.
So the early years of any career carry their own unique set of pressures, proving yourself, navigating workplace culture, establishing your voice. As a black man in public health, what specific obstacles did you face in those early years, and what tools, internal and external, help you overcome them?
Hmm. Uh, I guess I would have to say, hmm, it's a good question. It's a good question. I would guess one of the obstacle uh, opposition was myself,
Mhm.
doubting myself, and uh, having that internal fear, or you know, what if I fail, or what if you know I say something wrong, or it's that. So I would say my own self, and so
Mhm.
to overcome it internally, I guess I would have to say I had to remind myself of again where I had came from and where I was at that moment. And of course, I cannot get away from my faith and prayer.
And so let me just I want to preface this before I get into my next question.
Okay.
Is that with some of these questions where I'm asking you about being a black man, I just wanted to be understood to you as well as to the audience, is that I'm already understanding some of the pressures, the stresses, the differences, and things that you would have to go through from a mental and physical perspective in going through this career path. And so, what I want to make sure that what is understood is the fact that throughout all of this, you were very resilient to continue in doing what you did.
Right.
And so when I ask that, I want to come to this question here, which is, who were the professional colleagues, supervisors, or collaborators in your early career who truly saw your potential and helped amplify it? How did those relationships shape your professional identity?
There are too many to name to tell the truth. But I guess I would have to, let me just pull out a couple of them. There were a couple of nurses, even when I was patient technician and I was getting ready to start nursing school. And once I had started nursing school, there were a couple of nurses that kind of like took me under their wings. And, they were like, if I shouldn't be saying this, but, come on in here, start this IV. They saw in me the potential of becoming a good nurse. So they kind of like took me under their wings to shadow me. As we progressed in our career, we ran into other nurses that, were encouragers to us. I never will forget one supervisor. I said to her one time, because it seemed like I got all the troubled patient, if you quote unquote, this, so hard patient, let me say it that way. I got all the hard patient. And I went in her office one day and said, why are you always giving me the hard patients? And her response to me was, because you know how to handle them, the way you present and carry yourself. So to me, that was letting me know she had confidence in me as a professional over nurses that had a higher level of education than myself. So to see that in me and have that confidence and that trust in me, it motivated me more. And as we went on into my career, there were times that the supervisor would have me orientating nurses that had higher levels of education than I had, because of the professionalism and the demeanor and my character and the integrity that I had. And this was both from Black supervisors as well as white supervisors.
So, were there moments early in your career when you questioned whether you were in the right field, the right organization, or on the right path? If so, how did you stay grounded during those periods of uncertainty?
The only one that I could say was questioning the right organization. Uh, and so how I stayed grounded was, okay, I'm here for the patient. I'm here for 8 or 12 hours to take care of the patient until I find something different. So my focus was to remind myself of why I was where I was, and that was to take care of the patient. And that was my focus that kept me grounded until I can find that organization that I felt was a better fit.
Before founding He Cares, what professional experiences were most instrumental in preparing you in ways you may not have even realized at the time for the work of building and leading a community health education organization?
I would have to say organizational skills, my attention to details, and my adherence to policies and procedures. Because one of the things was when I went to another unit, the first thing I wanted to know what was the policy for that specific unit, so that I can adhere to that policy, those procedure. You know, I was a sticker for policy procedures,
Following the rules.
following the rules, and you know, I could, because I want to make sure if I'm being challenged, you know, that I have the tool to question why I'm being challenged for whatever reason it might be, according to the policy.
See, I think when you think about policies, you know, some people feel like, and I guess it just depends upon the individual. Some people think that yes, you do follow the rules, but there's always that time to deviate. Are you one of those people that deviate, or do you just stay on the straight line?
I deviate depending on the circumstance.
Okay.
And
so let's talk about your founding of He Cares Training and Educational Center. Let's talk about the birth of He Cares. Take us to the exact moment or the season of life when you knew you needed to build something of your own. What was the gap you saw, the pain point you simply could not ignore anymore?
the gap I say I saw is the gap would have to be that training and education portion, as I said earlier, about the preventive aspect. So when we began He Care, we were looking specific at the training and education portion of it, providing those training and education needed for those preventative measures, providing that training and education to the community, reaching out into the community, and giving them tools to make informed decision regarding their health and well-being. But as we begin to build it, we begin to realize, hey, there's some more areas that we can address as well and be beneficial to the community, not just to the communities, that to be beneficial to other organizations, whether they be faith-based, whether they be healthcare. And so we expanded it out to reach those areas as well as the communities. Because when you think about it, when a person is sick or have a health issue, one of the first person they're going to turn to is their pastor. So that's why we started reaching out to the faith-based organization to make sure that they can get that training and education.
So the name He Cares is powerful and intentional. Break that down for us. What does the name mean? What does it represent? And how does the name serve as both a mission statement and a promise to the community?
He cares. When we say He cares, we're talking about Christ, God. He cares. And that is the mission, that He cares, and we are the vessels that He uses to show that He cares.
Okay. What did the process of founding He Cares look like in those earliest days? What did you have? What did you not have? And what did you have to believe before any of the evidence said you should?
What we did not have, we didn't have nothing, but just a thought. Hey, that's all we had, the thought. Um, so we start doing research and find out what do we need to get this organization started. What do we need to do to get it uh, recognized by the state? What do we need to do about getting it licensed? So we did all those research, and then as we did those research and find out, then we said, okay, we got all this information. We need material. So we started developing curriculums. We started developing programs. We just started developing support groups, and we built it up from that.
So tell us about your co-founder and partner. Tell us what her name is, and tell us what her role is in the company, and how are you guys doing at this point?
Okay. Her name is Dr. Deidre Willis. She is DNP, and her role is she is the executive vice president, and she's the co-founder also. Her role is when it comes to the nursing education and nursing aspect of it. She helps to make sure that when we do because we do offer some continuing education hours, she makes sure that those training and those workshops and those seminars are meeting the goals of nursing education so that they can get approved for those continuing education unit for specifically nurses. So she's what we consider also as part of our nurse planner. So she helps with those things of the nursing aspect. And she also helped, teach some of the workshops and some of the seminars. And she also do part of when we do our podcast, she's also a host on the podcast, and she helps with that as well.
Wow. So every founder faces a moment when everything feels like it might fall apart. What was your hardest season in building He Cares, and what kept you moving? What kept you moving forward when every practical voice might have told you to stop?
The hardest part, I would say, is when a person would ask you or ask us, what do you do? So we were telling about all the programs we had and what all, So it was basically like we didn't really have a per se tagline or what have you to really express what we actually did. Our biggest problem, we was telling them how we did what we did, but we did not tell them what we actually did.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that was the struggling part, finding that voice to answer that one question: what do you do? And like I say, we were struggling with that. And when I said we were struggling, we were struggling so bad to our co-founder said to me, I don't know what we do.
Oh my God.
So we narrowing that down, it made a huge difference. Once we narrow it down to be able to answer that one specific question: what does He Cares do?
So, how did the community respond when He Cares first opened its doors? What was the initial reception like, the trust that was offered, the skepticism that had to be earned, and the early signs that what you were building was genuinely needed?
I guess a lot of people saw the name, and as you said, it was like, wow, that's powerful. And then they would come out with that question: what do you do?
He cares.
Yeah, so what do you do? And so struggling to get that out there of what we actually did, it kind of turned some people away because we didn't tell them what we did. We just kept telling them how we did what we did. So it kind of like gave them a distaste in their mouth, and they kind of turned it away. And like I said, it wasn't until we finally came up with that answer to that one question: what do you do? And that's when things started to shift, and people start to understand and recognize, oh yeah, this is something that we could use. This is an organization that we need to have a discussion with.
So if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice on the day you signed the paperwork and made He Cares officially real, what would you say to that version of yourself?
Make sure you know what it is that you do.
Let's move over to Black excellence, representation, and healthcare equity. Let us speak plainly about race and healthcare in your professional experience and observation. What does healthcare inequity look like on the ground, not in the statistics, but in the human moments, and why does it represent in a system that has been told repeatedly that it must do better?
Healthcare inequity, what does that look like? It when you when you're paying more attention to, let me rephrase that. When you label individuals that are actually having medical emergency or in severe pain or discomfort, and you start labeling them as drug seekers. And in actuality, they may be in a crisis, but you label them as drug seekers. Now, granted, there's some cases that may be true, but those individuals that actually are not, but are actually in a crisis, and we label them as drug seeker. I give upon an example. I know personally of a young man who was in sickle cell crisis, and they labeled him as being a drug seeker. And he wound up having to actually be admitted in the hospital because they realized that he was in sickle cell crisis.
You know, I had a healthcare worker here on the show a few weeks ago. He's up in Canada.
Okay.
And he said to me on this show, and he used the exact same example that you used. He said that there was a young man that came in and was going through a sickle cell crisis.
Wow.
And the people were saying, his white colleagues were saying that he was a drug addict, and he had this thing about pain, and he's just trying to get drugs and so forth. And the guy had got to the point where he was like really, really, like at a dire state.
Yes.
When you saw that, and you know that this was not the case, what were some of the things that was going through your mind as you are witnessing and listening to this distortion that could possibly have caused someone their life?
What was going through my mind?
Yes.
You gotta be kidding me. You cannot see the symptoms? That was going in my mind. And it kind of, it kind of made me a little uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
to see an individual like that being treated in that manner and thought of as that manner. And again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, that stigma. They see a young man coming in, and they just feel like, he's just seeking drugs.
Right. Why does Black representation in health education specifically matter? Walk us through the evidence, practical, psychological, cultural, and moral, for why it makes a measurable difference when the person training you, treating you, or guiding your health journey looks like you.
It gives them individuals a sense of trust, and it gives them a sense of relief and a sense of hope, because they're saying that this person understands me, this person gets me.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps break that fear, and it helps break that mistrust when they see someone that looks like them providing them care, and it gives them a sense of hope.
But I just have to add this caveat again, because just as I think about this, it's one of those things that I was talking earlier with another individual, and we were just and just chatting, and I was talking about triggers. These are things like this, especially when you can understand when they put these false stories out, these fake stories, like these little news articles and crap.
Right.
And you can read through them if you can comprehend. You can read right through the lie.
Yeah.
Because what kind of bothers me is when people like myself, or there's other people, that may come to, let's say, the hospital where you are, and they want to see somebody that look like them, because there is just no way I'm feeling the way I'm feeling that I'm going to trust you with your experimental thoughts,
right,
on what you think is wrong with me when I'm telling you what's wrong with me.
Right.
And you're going to tell me, no, that's not what you're feeling. This is what's going on. No, that's not true.
Right.
But they're not even, but I mean, so when you just think about that, why are these people not actually, put on Front Street, fired, or something has to happen from a disciplinary perspective, that every person is different, but every person is a person, and you must listen to your customer.
Mr. King, part of the training is they're taught that, but it's up to that individual to make sure that they adhere to their ethical codes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that they don't receive that training, they don't receive that education. It is that they do, but it's up to how they, once they're out in their practice, how they choose to carry out, like I say, those ethics codes, and to display those, ethics. So, and you said something about that triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of African American people may have had a bad experience with an office visit or with the hospital stay.
Mm-hmm.
And when they encounter similar situation, it may not be the exact same situation, but similar situation, that's a trigger, and their mind goes back to that bad experience, and then they will shut down. They won't answer your questions, or if they answer if they answer the question, they're gonna half-heartedly answer the question, because we triggered something and they're thinking about that previous bad experience that they had. And now all they're thinking about is just let me get up out of here.
Well, you know what? I'm not gonna go delve too deep with this, but I'm gonna tell you, which is why, I understand why people so much always thinking about Tuskegee, is because I actually was misdiagnosed with something that I know my body better than anything else. Of course, I didn't take it serious, but I was told that I needed to go in and have an actual bone density scan. And I'm like, for what? So I'm like, that don't even make sense.
Right.
And it came out of nowhere. But see, these are kind of like the experimental things that these people do. And they hate it when you call them out on it, And so how dare you think people are going to just trust you,
Right.
when, especially if you're doing just a basic checkup and all of a sudden they come from way from left field. Whoop. And then look, they done threw something in there. Oh, you need to get a meningitis shot. Meningitis? I'm 60 years old. Why the hell am I going to get a meningitis shot?
And too, Mr. King, what it is too, a lot of it is a lot of times, and it's sad to say, but they also look at your insurance.
Well, insurance wasn't a problem.
No, I'm not saying your case specifically, but I'm saying in some instance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got, good insurance, oh, you got them. Okay. Because speaking from experience, even when I went to have my eyes examined and everything, and they looked and say, oh, you got good insurance. So they took me to the most expensive glasses. I'm like, no, let's go back up on this side. And that's what I'm saying. And so I said that because a lot of times they look at your insurance and they say, okay, let's do this exam. It's sad to say, but it happens.
What systemic changes in policy and funding and institutional culture need to happen for the healthcare equity gap to meaningfully close? And who has responsibility for making those changes happen?
I think it needs to be at the educational institute that they offer training in the care for, because a lot of our diseases are common, yes, but there's some diseases that are more common among the African American. And I feel that there needs to be that specific training in treating those diseases for African American and not just the general population.
That makes a lot of sense, but then also at the same time, I think again we have to go back to all that extra that's thrown in there, because we got to make this hamburger be a real big old juicy cheeseburger. So you ain't just getting the meat, the patty, and the cheese. You gonna get the mayonnaise. You gonna get the Dijon mustard. You gonna get the patty. You gonna get the cheese. You're going to get the lettuce and the tomato, and then you're going to get some onions on top of that to make sure that you get all the taste.
But one size doesn't fit all.
One size don't fit all, but that dose, believe me, that dose could take you to your grave.
Yes. Because, and I think about when I had to have surgery, and the anesthesiologist, when he came in, I told him, I say, I know how y'all do your formula. I know you're going to do with your body weight and to calculate to make sure you get the right percentage of, anesthesia. I say, but I know my body. I say, I could take 2 Tylenols and that puts me out. I say, so you can't give me as much based on my calculation.
Right.
I've been doing this here for 35 years. I know what I'm doing. And I just looked at myself, and I respect that, but I know my body. And so when they put me under and they couldn't hardly wake me up,
Oh,
what I was going in for an outpatient procedure, I wind up having to stay because they couldn't wake me up from the anesthesia.
oh,
He stayed in my room to make sure I was all right. And when I finally was able to come out from under it, I said, I told you, Tylenol puts me out.
wow.
So again, something that you said, you know your body.
Yes.
And we as healthcare professionals, we have to listen to what the patients say, not what our textbooks have taught us.
Yeah. Yeah, because
that doesn't fit all.
no, because them folks sure don't believe one size fits all. If you black, you get and black people get this, so y'all all get it. Y'all all get the Tuskegee experiment. Y'all all gonna get some syphilis. And let's see who survived.
Yeah. So, and that's where that mistrust comes in at.
Black excellence in healthcare is not new. It has long extraordinary history that has been consistently under-recorded and under-celebrated. Who are the Black healers, educators, and healthcare trailblazers from history that you want to lift up tonight? The ones whose stories the American public deserve to know. From you.
Ooh, that's deep. Living or dead?
It doesn't matter. You want to lift them up.
That is really taking me down an avenue that I've never thought about. Mr. King,
What we'll do is we'll save that question when you come back on your next appearance. Because I am glad of one thing, and I'm saying this on air. I am glad that you did not say Ben Carson.
He was not even near my mind. No.
A Black man specifically, healthcare engagement, seeking help, going to the doctor, talking openly about mental and physical health is still stigmatized in many corners of our community.
Yes.
How do you personally address that stigma, and what work is He Cares doing to create culturally affirming spaces where Black men feel safe to prioritize their health?
You said a key word there. We try to provide that safe space so that they can freely express what they need to express without fear that they're going to be looked down on, feel like they're not going to be heard, feel like they're going to be whatever they say is not going to be valuable. You're not really listening. So we at He Cares, we try to make that safe space for them to feel like, yeah, we're listening. Yes, we hear you. Yes, we care. How are we going now? Let's have a discussion. So we open that door to have that open dialogue for them to express themselves without that fear.
Final question for you. What does Black excellence mean to you personally, not as a hashtag or a bumper sticker, but as a lived commitment? And how does your definition of Black excellence show up in the day-to-day operation of He Cares Training and Education Center, LLC?
Black excellence to me personally, meaning being who I am, showing up with integrity, showing up with character. And as far as He Cares, providing that education, providing that safe space, and just showing up to the community, being a support to the community, being a voice to and for the community. To me, that's Black excellence.
So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement you'd like to leave for our audience? Tell them how to connect with you via social media, your website, all of those good things that you'd like for them to know.
What I would like to say to the audience is pursue your dreams. Don't allow anyone or anybody to tell you that you can't achieve it or it's out of your reach. Pursue your dreams. And you can reach out to us. We at our website. Our website is He Cares Training Education Center.org. You can find us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is He Cares. That's the title of our Facebook page. We also do a podcast called Health Talk. You can find us on our YouTube channel with Health Talk. And again, that website is He Cares Training Education Center.org.
So, I'd like to thank each and every individual that's been here tonight, that's watched the show completely. I thank you for your support, and I hope you enjoyed the show. For those of you that are first-time watchers on any of our channels, especially YouTube channels, I want to ask you if you would, to please subscribe and enable all notifications so that you are able to get the shows when they go live. And you're also able to go back and watch all of our previous recorded shows and learn some information from each and every guest that has been on America in Black and White. So I'm going to close the show with this monologue. And when I close the show, after I close, I would appreciate if you could hang around for a few minutes afterwards for me.
All right.
America, what you just witnessed tonight was not simply an interview. What you witnessed was a testimony, a man shaped by love, forged by community, powered by purpose, sitting across from us and sharing the blueprint of his soul. Dr. Feris W. Corbett did not just answer questions tonight. He opened a door. He pulled back the curtain on what it looks like when a human being decides what the needs of his community are greater than his own comfort, that the gap between what exists and what should exist is his personal responsibility to close. This is not a job description. That is a calling. And tonight, we were all privileged to sit in the presence of a man who answered his. We began this evening by calling three names: Naomi McCowan, Emma Corbett, and Maddie Blake. And as I prepare to send you home tonight, I want you to call those names one more time, because their work is not done. Their work walked into your living room tonight in the form of Dr. Feris Corbett. Every program He Cares has ever offered, every student who has ever walked through those doors and emerged with new skills and new confidence, every family that is healthier because of the education his organization provided, every single one of those outcomes is a continuation of the love, the sacrifice, and the example those three women poured into one child. Legacy is not what we leave behind. Legacy is what we pour forward. And these three women poured so well that the world is still drinking from what they gave. So here's our call to action tonight, America. If you believe that every community deserves access to quality health education, support He Cares Training and Education Center, LLC. If you believe that Black excellence in healthcare is not an exception, but an expectation, share this episode. If you believe that the next generation of Black doctors, nurses, healthcare educators, and community health advocates deserve to see themselves reflected in the leadership of this field, do something about it today. Donate, volunteer, enroll, advocate, mentor, hire, invest. Do not let this conversation end when the screen goes dark. Let it begin something in you that does not stop. From my heart to yours, from the platform that exists to tell the truth about who we are and who we have always been, thank you for being here. Thank you, Dr. Feris Corbett, for your grace, your brilliance, and your unshakable love for your people. And to every ancestor watching from the other side of time, we see you. We honor you. We're still building what you started. This has been America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King, and as always, we are still here, still rising, and still unapologetically, beautifully, powerfully Black. Good night, America. God bless you all. Y'all have a great evening. We will see you